What's up, everybody? I'm Patrick Jones. This is The Road to the Show. Today we have head baseball coach of Xavier University, Billy O'Connor, on. Billy, thanks for coming on.
No problem. Appreciate you having me.
So last night, I don't know if you were watching the Cubs Nationals, but there was a lot of managerial decisions that were questionable. As a head coach, do you watch Major League games and just kind of look at the decisions that are made, kind of like a player would, like Bryce Harper, for example, or somebody like that?
Sure. Yeah, I think that ever since I was a player, I've always evaluated things from a not necessarily managerial standpoint, but from a strategic standpoint. As a catcher, it's cliche to talk about they're the coach on the field, but you really are. And I think that that's part of what allowed me to be successful as a player. I thought along those lines, and then that's made a pretty easy transition into coaching, being able to think about those things all the time. So yeah, it's interesting that's the beauty of baseball, is that there are so many variables and there's so many decisions to be made along the way, and each and every decision affects the next, and you can really play a big role. I mean, you look at what Madden was able to do last night with the challenge and getting that out of first base, like. Conversely, compared to what Girardi did and didn't challenge the other night, that's swinging game in either direction. So I do think that you can have an impact on the game with some of your decisions.
The game is changing, right? There's a lot of sabermetrics. I had even had on someone yesterday who's made a living pretty much talking about sabermetrics. Are you going to implement any type of like analytics this year for your team, or is it kind of just based off of just how you feel day to day?
Yeah, definitely, and that's something that I think that we have a very young staff, and I think that we are very technology savvy as much as we can be, and there are limitations as far as what we can do and what we can afford to implement within our program, but I think that we want to try to stay on the forefront of what we do from a technological, statistical, analytics side of things as much as possible. So we looked into TrackMan before in the past, and that's from a logistical standpoint, it's tough for us just because it's not movable. So what we've invested in is it's called Rapsodo. Really measures the RPM to spin rate, and I think to me that's one of the hidden things that's I think it's going to move forward more towards the forefront of baseball and analytics and that kind of stuff. And it certainly has started to within major leagues, but I think across the board it's going to, because it's a hidden thing. Every recruiting coach, every college coach has a radar gun they can hold up and it says 88 or 90 or 86 or 92, whatever it is. But it's tough to truly see. You certainly can't see with the naked eye spin rate. I think that's something that it's tough, and Coach Adi was just going through some TrackMan numbers online as we were in there before, but it's something that we've started to monitor within our program with our pitchers. Not so much that once they're here we can't say, oh well, your spin rate's not good, you can't pitch for us.
Yeah.
Now it's a matter of how do we best implement what they can do, how do we work on things that help a spin rate. So a higher spin rate guy on the fastball, they want to be more up in the zone. A lower spin rate guy is going to be more of a sinker guy, they need to be down. So they can't, to our knowledge, and I'm not super expert in this field, but they're not going to change who they are a whole lot from a spin rate, but they can change how they go about their business and how they attack hitters. So I think that's something that's been pretty interesting to us. We've used for the past couple of years. We've also got a Rapsodo hitting machine, which is on its way. It's similar to the hit tracks that kind of measures launch angle, exit velocity, distance, all that kind of stuff, which is really interesting to us. I love the defensive metrics that they show on MLB Network all the time. To me, that would be fascinating to do within our guys. And being an outfielder, that it's tough to say for sure, like, okay, he's a really good outfielder in college or in high school or in summer ball, because all you have is, did he catch it or did he not catch it? Outfielders really don't make that many errors. It's not like they're dropping balls. It's what balls do you get to and what balls do you not get to. And it's tough to really quantify that in an unbiased manner, that, oh, he would have got to that, he wouldn't have got to that, without some of the information that they have with the StatCast kind of stuff. So I think that's really interesting. We are not really able to implement it right now, but I do think all the, it's part of what makes baseball so interesting to me, is that there are so many facets and so many aspects that you can continue to learn and continue to discover as you go through.
That's pretty interesting about the spin rate. I really didn't even know that. In terms of like a hitting philosophy, have you guys adapted into like getting the ball like in the air? Like, you hear that all the time. I know you're on social media. You see that all the time. Like, never bunt ever again. Like, what's your hitting philosophy here?
We've developed, and since I coached you, personally I've developed, and we've learned new things, we've implemented new things, and the stuff that I was taught as a player, the stuff that I taught when I first started coaching is really kind of the opposite end of the spectrum of what we teach right now. We want guys to drive the ball in the air as much as possible. Certainly plays in our park with the smaller dimensions, but it plays anywhere. At the end of the day, what I tell guys is you don't want your perfect swing to line up and that first bounce to be 10 feet in front of the plate, and then you're hoping it's not at the shortstop and it's in the sixth hole or up the middle. You want that perfect swing to line up where it's hit over somebody's head. We recruit to that. We teach that. We practice that. If you watch our BPs are pretty impressive, and it's not truly just a home run derby, but man, try to drive the ball out of the park. Home runs are really fun. They're good for the team.
Oh, and I actually I was down the other day watching practice, and you guys had some kids just hitting some. I thought we were hitting the ball like far when I was here, but it's like every kid, it seemed like, was just hitting on victory.
It is. It's crazy. Each year our field feels smaller, and I think that's a good problem to have, but it is. I can remember when I was playing here, you had a guy that hit it over the screen in left field. You're like, oh wow. Yeah. Now it's like, oh, you hit a home run that didn't go over the screen. Like, okay, let me know when you do.
Right.
So it's been cool, and I think it makes sense from a logistical standpoint. And for me as a guy, and probably when I know when I was coaching you, like, man, I hated strikeouts so much, and we talked about 2-strike approach, and we still talk about that, and that's something we work on, but. What I tell our guys is there's a time and a place when you can't strike out. It's man on third, less than 2 outs, infield's back. We've got to have the ball in play. You've got to have that in your arsenal that, I am not going to strike out. I'm going to move the ball. I'm going to shorten up, just put a ground ball in play and score a run for us. And I think that's really important. But, if you're a guy that drives the ball out of the park and it's 1 out, nobody on base, or certainly 2 outs, nobody on base, and, it's either I'm going to swing and try to hit a double or a home run, or I'm going to strike out. The strikeout's not the worst thing in the world. And I don't want to be okay with, we strike out 15 times a game or anything. But, if you look at what we've done from an offensive standpoint, the home runs we've hit in the past years, we've hit a lot of home runs. We've struck out more than I would like, probably, but at least they're going hand in hand. If you don't have the power to back it up, there's really no excuse for striking out. But we've kind of elevated both a little bit. So we would like to cut back on strikeouts for sure while still maintaining the power numbers, but it is something that we've kind of changed our approach on a little bit.
And are you guys still implementing, I guess, a little bit of like drag bunting?
Yeah, and that's still a weapon. We don't do a whole lot of sack bunting. We've got away from that just because it and I'm not breaking any ground here, but it doesn't make sense to give outs away. It really doesn't. And I think that the idea of a drag bunt, you're still accomplishing something if you're moving that runner and you're giving yourself the chance of getting a base hit. And it's a weapon. It changes how the defense defends you, especially if you're a pull ground guy as a right-handed hitter. If that third baseman's got to be 10, 15 feet closer to you, that's a lot less range that he has to get a ground ball that's hit his way. So yeah, that's a weapon. That's something I talk about in recruiting a lot. Is that my ideal guy? We want really good athletes, but I want a guy that can drive the ball out of the park, and then the next day we put a drag bunt down for a base hit. Like how do you defend that? And I don't know if you remember specifically like Seton Hall that first year we played up there. Man, they were good. They could bunt, they could drive the ball out. Like it was like a really good lineup, really good athletes, 1 through 9 in the lineup, and that's really what we tried to create here.
It's so hard to defend. I remember even this past summer I was in a slump, and I'm not the fastest guy in the world, but I laid one down. And, it's almost a hit every time if you do it correctly.
Seriously, yeah, and if not, it's a strike. It shouldn't be an out. So yeah, it's something we work with really every guy on our team.
That's your first year as head coach. You guys obviously had a very successful season last year. What can everyone expect from you guys this year in 2018?
I'm excited to see. It's going to be a different team. We lost a lot of innings, more so than anything, that we're going to replace with some young guys. We have the right guys to do it. The thing is that I'm sure you remember being a freshman. I remember being a freshman. Sometimes you make things a bigger deal than they actually are, and you speed the game up, and you overwhelm yourself more than the game overwhelms you. It's not scary for me because I know we have the right guys to really be successful on the mound. But it's our job to really prepare them to be ready to go. When you go down to Florida State that opening weekend and go against them, that's going to be a hostile environment. A lot of fans yelling at you against a really good team. How can we create that setting prior to that to get them ready to go down there so it's not a freak out when they get out on the mound for the first time. I think we have the right guys. I feel very confident and very positive that they're going to be ready to go. But it's going to be they're going to be thrown into the fire a little bit. And I'm excited to see because it's the right guys. It's not guys that are throwing 78, 80 and they got no chance.
Yeah.
These are really talented guys. It's just let's go. Time to grow up. Time to play at that Division I level. So from an offensive standpoint, I think we return a lot. Obviously losing a couple of seniors, particularly Bannon in the middle of the lineup, there's no way to replace what he brought to the table. But I do think that collectively we can replicate, if not better, what we did as an offense last year, just because I think that we're really going to have some depth with a really powerful lineup.
Is there anything that's maybe like surprised you since this is your first year as a head coach? Is there anything that like, man, I really didn't think it'd be like this, or I'd feel this type of maybe pressure and this, since you're, everything goes through you now.
Right. Not really. And that's been a common question, kind of phrased a lot of times, like what's different, what's changed now that you're a head coach? And, at the end of the day, I'm the ultimate decision maker, and that has changed. But the thing that's allowed me to feel comfortable in the role that I'm in, to ease that transition, is that Coach Googans was so good at giving me responsibility and allowing me to make decisions and allowing me to have input in what we were doing, and Coach Adi as well too. And that's why I think he's really prepared to do the same thing that I'm doing right now too. But it hasn't been like, man, I don't know how to. I don't know how to do the budget. I don't know how to work with compliance, or I don't know how to do travel or schedule. Those are things that we've been working on. I've been working on since I got here as an assistant. So again, the final decisions are flowing through me a little bit. But besides that, from a day-to-day responsibility, it hasn't changed drastically. So it's been an easier transition. There's more speaking roles in front of the team for me. But that's probably the thing and then the fundraising aspect as well a little bit too. But besides that, it's been a pretty smooth transition.
I mean, you've been an assistant coach for quite a while. It seems like it's like really hard to get a full-time assistant college coaching position. I mean, you were a volunteer for 2 or 3 years?
3 years, yeah.
3 years. Like, what advice would you give to someone who is out there just grinding? And obviously, we know people who are doing volunteers here, there. Like, what advice would you give to someone who wants to become a full-time coach?
Yeah, I mean, it's got to be a passion of yours. You can't be 1 foot in and 1 foot out for sure, because it is going to take time. It is going to take a lot of work. But from a concrete standpoint, I would say the biggest thing is network. Get to know people. For me, even going through when I was hired and now I had to hire some people, I relied on my network a lot to fill out my staff. And I got a lot of resumes emailed. I got a lot of people that I didn't know reaching out, and it's tough to make that leap. And I'm not saying I did it the right way, but I think that I'm kind of normal in that regard, that I want to be confident. I want to feel comfortable in the decision that I'm making. And when you rely on people that are already in your network and you trust, and they say, hey man, I got this guy that I really trust, he's really good, I think you should take some time and talk with him. That makes my job easier. That makes any job easier. And I think that the more people that you can really get to know and go out of your way. And for me, that wasn't something that I was really comfortable doing. I'm not naturally that gregarious, naturally that outward, that outgoing of a person. So getting into this industry, that's something I felt that I really needed to work on and get better at, is going out of my way to talk to people and get to know people and get to meet new people. And I think that I have gotten better. I still need to get better at it for sure. But I do think building that network, that's every bit as important as building that resume. And I do think that as a coach starting out, I think it's important to be in a setting where you can grow. That was so beneficial for me to work under Coach Googans, for him to give me the responsibilities that he gave me and allow me to fail so that I can learn from those mistakes. And that's something that I hope to do, and I try to do with my young staff right now, is give them leeway. You were there when I first started. I made mistakes along the way, and hopefully I learned from it. And that's the same thing I talk about with our guys. Like, man, you're going to make mistakes. And I'm not a guy that's going to jump on for every mistake they make, but learn from it. Don't repeat your mistakes, because at that point, then we are going to have some issues. And it's the same thing with coaching. Like, there's no handbook exactly the best way to do this, the best way to do that. And along the way, there's going to be some mistakes, but learn from it and grow and be a better person and better coach along the way. But I think that if you go at it with, man, I want to work as hard as I possibly can, I want to give these guys the best experience that I possibly can, and I'm going to do everything I can to make that happen, you're going to go at it with the right mindset, and it's going to work out eventually.
Well, one of the things I actually saw that was pretty interesting, speaking of that, is, even though you are the head coach now, I've seen you actually take recruits around, show them around. What do you guys look for specifically in a recruit?
Yeah, so that's a good question, one we get all the time, and I never have a great answer for it, and it varies.
Or I guess maybe like, why should a recruit choose Xavier? I guess maybe
okay, that's it. Oh boy.
Oh,
that's what happens when you get motion detector and you don't move.
We're still here, Periscope.
We're back.
Live stream.
Xavier's an unbelievable school, and for me, part of why I love my job is at the university that I get to represent. And just as it's easy for you probably to talk about how great of a school Xavier is and what a great experience you had, it's easy for me too, because I went through it. I went to school here, I played here, I had some great time, great memories, great experiences, and now getting to represent the school is pretty cool. So from a standpoint of recruiting, from an academic and athletic standpoint, the success that we've had in both those fronts, I don't know if there's another school in the country that's doing what we're doing right now, to go to back-to-back regional finals while also having, a smaller enrollment, the profile that we have as a school, the small class sizes, the high academics. It's not an easy thing it's not an easy thing for anybody to do, and something we've done really well. So, we definitely cater to kids that care about their academics, and it's not so crazily academic that we don't also really care about baseball. And to me, and you having gone through it as well too, I think that's what makes Xavier special, is you can really succeed in both areas, have a great baseball experience and play high level baseball and really accomplish a lot of things baseball wise, while still getting a great education, getting a great degree, and being able to work at both of those without one of them being so overwhelming that it affects the other. So, I think that in a nutshell is what makes Xavier pretty special. And things, quite honestly, since you graduated, and definitely since when I graduated in 2009, things have gotten a lot better.
Yeah.
The resources that we have available to us with the new weight room, the new training room, the new academic center, all the stuff that's going in Cintas, the business school, the dining hall, the library, what we're going to have going on soon with our locker room and out at the field. Like, there are a lot of resources there. And there's really no cap to how successful any individual can be. If you're willing to work, it's not like, oh man, if we had this academic center, I could really do well academically. We got it. We've got all those. It's not, God, if I really had a good weight room, I'd put on another 10 pounds. It's there. There's nothing lacking. What's important to us is, and this is getting back to the original question, is having the right guys in the program, guys that really want to work, guys that really are driven to succeed, and have that work ethic built in. That it's not just about, I want to be a big league player. Great. What are you doing to be a big league player besides wanting it? I want to go to Omaha. Well, if I don't act on that, if I don't bust it out on the recruiting trail, if I don't work to develop our guys, if I don't take care of, then it's not going to happen. And the same thing with the players. You want to be a big league player, that's great, but you got to work every day like you're a big leaguer. And it can't be that, my junior year, I think I'm going to get drafted. Like, no, it starts day one. You got to put in the work in the weight room. You got to put in the work out on the field. You got to put in the work, the mental game stuff, taking care of your body. Those are things that not every kid, no, quite honestly, a lot of kids don't understand, but it's something that we really try to identify as kids that get it. Kids that understand that they are in control of how good they can be, and how much they work is ultimately going to dictate how successful they are. And that's something that we believe within this program, that the more work you put in, the more successful you're going to be. And it's not always instantaneous. It's not always going to be, I work really hard in the weight room on a Monday, and then on Tuesday I weigh 15 pounds more and I can bench 50 pounds more. Like, that's not how it works. It's day after day after day after day, but ultimately those results, or the work is going to turn into positive results. So that's important to us from a recruiting standpoint, finding those guys. From a concrete, what we're looking for, we really like athleticism. Like I talked about, I like guys who can drive the ball out of the park, put down a bunt, steal a bag. Doing all those things that lends itself to what we want to do from an offensive approach, from a defensive standpoint, being able to move around laterally and being really good defensively. Like guys throw the ball hard.
As hard as possible.
No secret there for sure, but we like guys that do things aggressively across the board. I think that's something that we've really taken to heart, is that we want to be the aggressor, in the way that we play the game, the way that we approach each at bat, the way that we approach each hitter on the mound. We want to be the aggressor in the situation.
Yeah, just piggybacking on a few things that you were talking about. I mean, one of the things that I really love about Xavier, and I took full advantage, is the academic support system.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it really is incredible how much, and just the campus size as well. Like, it's a small campus, but it's big enough where, you're not going to see someone one day and the next, you're never going to see them again.
Right, sure.
And the other thing is, you're in classes, and a lot of your teammates are in the same classes too. Sure. So you get to do that thing. Speaking of, piggybacking again on recruiting, how much do you guys put into like the PBR events, perfect game events? Or is it, do you think that players should focus more on like going to like the Xavier camp basically tomorrow, for example?
All people should sign up.
Yeah, for the Xavier camp tomorrow.
Right,
Yeah.
I think it's both. I think it's dangerous for us to go purely to showcase events and recruit kids from there without seeing them play in a game and how they interact in a game situation with their teammates, how they interact with the umpires, how they play the game. I think that's dangerous, but also I do think that there are value to campus, school camps, or PBR showcases, because it does allow us to get the measurables. We can go out to watch a high school game sometimes, and a kid can walk 4 times and not get any balls at shortstop, and it's like, okay, what's my evaluation of this kid at this point? So, I think that helps with some of the measurables, and measurables factor in, but measurables aren't the only thing that we look at in recruiting. So, I don't think that any kid should go to 20 different PBR events. What I tell kids a lot of times is it's better to not be seen than it is to be seen poorly. So if you're not ready to really go out there and showcase yourself, don't go. Because if I go out and I see a kid throwing 76 miles an hour, we can't recruit him. If I don't see him, well, I still need to go see him at that point. So that's something. I think it's good to, through, as you take, maybe in the summer, and then you work out through the winter, you get better, some of your 60 time goes down, you start having a higher exit velocity, you throw harder off the mound, you go to that next one to show people where the progress you've made and what you've been able to accomplish. But, if you're 80 in the spring and you go to a showcase, and you're 80 in the summer and you go to a showcase, and you're 80 in the fall, like, you're not doing any good at that point. Like, everybody's seen you for the most part. You need to work on getting better at that point. So there's value to them for sure, but I think our strategy is we want to see everything. We'll go to the showcases certainly, but we definitely want to go and watch kids play too.
If a kid comes to like your camp specifically, or does that help because now you know that they're interested in the program?
Definitely, yeah, and that's something I tell kids as well too. That if you have specific interest in any school, going to their camps is one of the best way to make sure that you're going to be seen. Like, there's no guarantees, Again, if you really want to come play baseball at Xavier, and you're a senior in high school, and you come here and you throw 74 miles an hour, like, man, thanks for coming, but we can't really. That's not a Division I pitcher. But if you want to make sure that Xavier's going to see you, come to the camp and play in front of us. We're going to see you. It's not, we're having somebody else run this camp for us. We're there. We're going to watch. We're going to evaluate and do the whole thing. So yeah, I definitely think that's something that's important.
I actually had a kid send me a message last night because I told him that I was going to interview you, and one of his questions was, what if he couldn't afford to go to a showcase or something like that? What would be the next best thing that he could do? Like make a video and send it, or how would that? I don't know if you guys look at videos.
Definitely. I literally, since I've got the job, I've watched every video that's ever been sent to me. And I will tell him and anybody listening and watching, it doesn't have to be super high production value. And I don't need a 25-minute. I certainly don't need a 25-minute long video.
Yeah, how long would it be? Like a couple minutes?
A minute and a half.
Yeah.
Because we get a lot of emails and. We can't sit there and watch the full length of the video, so just taking some video on your iPhone, just taking some swings of BP, a couple swings off the tee, and then some positional stuff. If you're an infielder, some ground balls. If you're a catcher, some receiving, some blocking, some throwing. An outfielder making some throws, moving around. Maybe a 60 on there would be good as well too.
Do you guys take 60s like really seriously, or is it more like home to first? I don't mean to. I was pretty curious about that.
It's everything, there are guys that run a 6.6 60 and that speed doesn't translate to the game. There's guys that run a 6.9 60 and it's like, man, that guy's a burner. I don't know, so it's another measurable. We look at the measurables, but we aren't basing everything off the measurables, if that makes sense. So yeah, but back to the video, just a quick minute and a half, send it to a coach and make it a personalized email as well too. That's the thing that I'll say. When I get an email and it's got in the to box every coach from UC, Miami, NKU, Wright State, Ohio State, Dayton, Indiana, and it says, Coach, I really want to come to your school. Okay, you can't really want to come to 20 different schools. Take the time to put Coach O'Connor. I saw you guys had a good year. Congrats on going to another regional championship. I really have a lot of interest. That to me, that I noticed those a lot more than the ones that I can tell went out to 150 different coaches.
Yeah, but that's interesting that you make sure you watch every single video. From like pitchers who are sending in videos, would you say like just try to throw as hard as you possibly can. Like, see, hopefully Coach I will like that.
Yeah, it's good, and some kids do it and some kids don't. But when they send in a pitching video, if there is a radar gun pointed and you can see what that number says, because you watch a video and it's like, okay, is that 82? Is that 88?
Yeah.
And that's a big difference with how we're going to recruit. So yeah, I mean, we look to see how the arm works, how the body works, general command of how they're pitching, how the breaking ball works a little bit. I do think pitching is a little bit tougher to evaluate through video than hitting is, though.
One last question, then we'll let you get going here. What's your prediction for the 2018 team?
Omaha.
Omaha?
That's what we've talked about since we got here. And, that was something that came up in the interview process, is what would be your first message to the team if you got the job. And I said, we lost a lot last year, but this is not a rebuilding year. We're good enough and we're talented enough that my goal is to take that next step. And we've been to back-to-back regional championships or regional finals. The next step is a super. The next step is Omaha. That's my expectation. And I know I'm well aware that progress is not always a straight line. And sometimes you'll go forward, sometimes you'll step back. As long as you're moving in the right direction cumulatively, I think that's important. But to say that my goal is anything less than taking that next step to a super at Omaha is not true, because we've got the right guys to do it. And I just want to make sure that the guys within our program and people that care about this program, we're not planning on taking and rebuilding it. Just because we had 4 guys drafted last year and 2 of our incoming guys drafted as well too, that's awesome and that's a great accomplishment. But I think we've got the talent within our program that we're going to take that next step forward this year.
Yeah, I mean, when I was here, we went to the regional, and it was like, awesome, we're at the regional. And then, after I left, you guys went to 2 more regionals. So it's like, you can get to the real.
Sure.
Now it's time, like you said, take that next step, because
Exactly.
you have, you can play with anybody or get to Omaha. So,
Exactly.
Well, I really appreciate you stopping by today. For those listening and those watching, make sure to follow Xavier Musketeers this year. And thanks again, Billy, for stopping by.
No problem. Thanks, Pat.
All right.